I'm sending this huge box of tarot decks and books to my friend. Before I send it off, let me share with you what's inside. And here's a preview of everything I'm sending. Hi, welcome back, Sarah here. So I've always lamented not having tarot deck libraries the same way that we have book libraries. Like, wouldn't it be nice to borrow a tarot or oracle deck just like we would borrow a book? We get to keep it for a little bit, peruse it, use it for readings, try it in any way that we want, and then at the end of the loan period, we get to return it without having to keep it long term. It would save me a lot of headache, right? Without having to manage a collection to be constantly curating my collection. It would be nice to try out these decks without the long-term commitment of it. Well, my friend Joe of Pointed Logic Tarot and I are going to do just that. We're going to share tarot decks and oracle decks and books from each of our collections, and then return them back to each other after a period of time. So I've got a bunch of decks and books here that Joe requested, and a couple of other things that I'm throwing in the mix as well. I wanted to talk about these decks and books on camera, my thoughts on them, just a little chit-chat, right, before I send off the box this week. I'm also sending one more deck out to another friend. I will talk about that later on as well. So in no particular order, first I'll talk about the Messages from the Spirits of Nature Oracle. I bought this 2 years ago at the Powell's City of Books, I think, whatever that bookstore is in Portland. It's a really big bookstore, multiple stories, tons of books, tons of sections. I saw a section for tarot decks and oracle decks. I was enamored. They even had a binder that can preview cards from each tarot and oracle deck that they had in store. And I bought this. Normally, I don't like oracle decks with just keywords. This one is an oracle deck that has nature word or concept on it, as well as a keyword. I have used this very little. It's not a deck that I would get rid of, though, because I like having it in my back pocket. I like having it on the shelf for the rare time when I might want to use it. You know, I was surprised that I got really into the Gentle Tarot last year, but because of that, I got more into these ideas of nature and using nature as analogies and metaphors to apply to my own life. So this is that same idea, using nature or learning from nature, really, taking these lessons and concepts from nature and applying them to my own life as well. But yeah, I have not used this deck that much. I do really like the layout of it. The format just seems very simple, very straightforward, very functional. This bar makes the text very legible, the lack of borders, the larger card size. I think I've just used it to draw like a single card as a topic of the reading and then maybe draw more tarot cards around that. I'm really curious to hear what Joe might think of it and if she has other ideas for how I might want to use it when I get it back. And then to preview the guidebook, let's do Owl, for example. So Owl Intuition. We have a little snippet about owls here, and then the message here, so the interpretation or a message here from the owl card here. Let's do another one. Let's see, rice, nourishment. That one was cool to think about. Rice is the most important human food crop in the world, directly feeding more people than any other. And then the message here too. And I really liked the spreads in this deck, in particular one spread here. This is the cross spread. So it can be used for guidance on a specific issue, but I also like to use it as like a general spread for the week ahead. The center card is a representation of the issue. Card 2 before is the subconscious influence of which you are unaware. Card 3 is the external influence of which you are aware. Card 4 is what is required for resolution, and card 5 is the resolution. So very straightforward. It feels similar to the Celtic Cross, but broken down some more, and yeah, it just works for me. Another deck that Joe requested is the Rainbow Tarot. This one is very new to my collection. I've only just bought it a couple months back. I bought it because I was curious about having colorful decks to do tarot readings with for other people. I've also used this as inspiration to watercolor in my journal as well. So I haven't used this for reading for myself or for other people yet because I'm still getting to know and quite love the Queer Tarot. The Queer Tarot is another colorful tarot deck that I bought around the same time, and I've been using that Queer Tarot to read for people a lot more. I really like the campiness of this Rainbow Tarot. I don't know if campiness is the right word. I know I use it a lot. Maybe the brightness of it, the boldness, the different colors. And it's really cool that the illustrator is El Salvadoran. I say cool because it's cool to see artists from other countries and other cultures. And it's a shame that this deck is counterfeited and ripped off so much. This art style is really unique and very lovely. I tried looking for the secondhand, and I was disappointed that all of the decks that I found on the secondhand site on eBay were counterfeits. So I went to Barnes & Noble and found a legit copy. And it was funny because I was checking that week for a Barnes & Noble near me that had this in stock. And there was one like 45 minutes out. So I was like, okay, later on in the week, I'll go to Barnes & Noble, 45 minutes out and I'll get it. And then I decided to check one morning the Barnes & Noble near me again. and it popped up in stock. I was like, oh my God, this wasn't in stock yesterday. I knew it, but it was in stock today. So that same day, I went over and I bought this deck right away. So I hope the publishers or the stockists can notice, the second this deck was in stock, someone bought it from their inventory immediately. It's that popular. Yeah, and I know I've passed on this deck in the past because I was like, oh, I don't want Rider-Waite-Smith clones, but I find myself kind of coming back to them. And I guess also because I'm reading for other people now, I also want decks where I can easily draw upon these Rider-Waite-Smith imagery because I'm just really familiar with it. And also for other people who might be more familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, this takes that imagery and riffs on it a little bit, So yeah, this is my experience so far with the Rainbow Tarot. And by experience, really not much experience, but my enjoyment of it so far. And again, I think I've mentioned, I like to use this as inspiration for watercoloring in my journals. So just draw a card and then use the patterns or the colors or the shapes to add color to my journals. Even if this stays on the shelf for a while longer and I'm not using it or reading it that often, that is okay too. I think that is something that I and many of us can just be more comfortable with. Like, it's okay to have things on the shelf and not use them all the time. If we still get enjoyment from pulling them out, and or if they serve as inspiration for us in other ways, then that is their function as well. That is just the point of having a collectible, having a collection. So that is the Rainbow Tarot. Okay, so speaking of colors, this is not going to Joe. It's going to another friend because I'm letting it go and this friend was interested. I wanted to mention another colorful deck that I am actually letting go of. So this is the Playful Heart Tarot, and this is the crochet bag that I made for it. This is also going to go to my pal. And I also have the little guidebook for it as well. I realized after having this on the shelf for a while that I don't reach for it. It's funny because I just said, it's okay to have decks that we don't reach for, and the thing is, it depends on what feels right for you, right? Having this deck that I don't read with, first of all, I've only had this for 1 or 2 months. It makes sense. But this deck that I've had for years, I just don't feel connected with it. I've said before that I like this deck a lot, but just as the months go by, as the weeks and years go by, I realize I like the art style of this deck, but actually reading with it, I don't really connect with these cards. I think a sign that I feel connected with a deck is when I can imagine any of the cards in the deck. It doesn't have to be all of the cards as if I've memorized all 78 cards of every single deck. I think it's if a deck is memorable enough and I connect with it enough that if someone were to say, what does the Temperance card in the Playful Heart Tarot look like? And I can imagine it already, I feel like that's a sign that I feel connected with that kind of deck. I can easily imagine all the Rider-Waite-Smith cards because I have connections with them. And this is, the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. I can name and picture any of these Rider-Waite-Smith cards because I know the imagery so well. But this Playful Heart Tarot, I like it in theory, but I guess in practice, I don't really connect with it and I just can't really read with it. When I put out cards on the table to make a story out of or to read with, I just don't feel much. It's visually beautiful. It's so fun and it's so colorful. And I will fight anyone who thinks it's childish or ugly. I mean, that's your opinion, but I'll fight you on it. But I just don't connect with it. With this friend, if they happen to maybe not want it, maybe I'll ask for it back, or maybe I'll just rebuy it. I think that's the other thing. Do I like it enough to rebuy it? And I just don't really feel that connected to it. Man, I really like this deck visually. I like flipping through it, but I don't enjoy putting cards down on the table. Also, there are some times when it feels like it's just a little bit too on the nose for me too. With my decks, I do like when there's neutrality and I can read positive or negative or expansive meanings in the cards, but sometimes the expressions, the colors here feel a little bit too on the nose. I hope that the friend who I'm sending this to enjoys it, and if they don't, I'm sure the deck will get passed on to someone who does enjoy it. And I guess I pulled out the Rainbow Heart as a comparison, so I guess we'll just look at these real quick side by side. Yeah, zooming in there. Yeah, look at these colors. And who knows, maybe in the future, I'm gonna decide I don't like the Rainbow Heart Tarot either. Or no, not the Rainbow Heart, the Rainbow Tarot. Man, so confusing. Rainbow Heart Tarot versus Rainbow Tarot. But yeah, who knows, maybe in the future I'm going to decide I don't really like the Rainbow Tarot either, but I'll have at least given it a try. Just like with the Playful Heart Tarot. I liked some of these cards. I had somewhat of a good experience in the past, and now I just feel done with it. I'm ready to move it on. It's like I've finished reading with it in a way, And real quick, I want to mention something about the guidebook. I hope to not come off as a hater. Just wanted to share like my own experience or interpretation of it. There's a lot of flowery stuff in the text that is just really distracting to me. I have ADHD, so first of all, reading and staying focused and engaged can be a struggle. But second of all, there are like emojis and symbols everywhere, and it just feels a bit distracting. It's also quite poetic and flowery. Yeah, the text, a lot of symbols, it's quite flowery, it's prose, it's fun, but it just feels a bit on the nose for me. So yeah, that's the Playful Heart Tarot. Two other decks here. Real quick, we got the 1909 Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot Sawyer Redux Edition. If you know Jamie Sawyer, you know of her decks, then you kind of know her art style. I've had a couple of her decks before. The Pocket of Peers Tarot, which is based on or inspired by a lot of figures in the tarot/divination community. Also the Out of Hand Tarot, which is similar to the Tarot of Oneness, where there's no like people or faces, but all of the cards in that deck are based on like perspectives. Now I also have this one. Basically, it's the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, but drawn in her style. So as you can see, these cards are borderless. And they also have these mandalas in the back that have different symbols relating to each card. The Page of Wands, for example, we have the alchemical symbols for the page here. So fire and earth, don't quote me on them. I'm still learning my alchemical symbols. Some people say that the mandala can be distracting, and I can see that on camera. However, in person, looking at these like just under my regular lights, it doesn't look that distracting, but also your mileage may vary. Some people do prefer very straightforward or simple backgrounds. I really enjoy this though. It feels like the tones of the background are they're very same toned, so it's easy to just focus on like the general essence of the card. And also, Jamie has redrawn or redesigned some of the figures to add more skin tones. For example, I think we saw earlier, the Page of Wands has a darker skin tone. This person here looks like their ethnicity has changed as well. So I appreciate that too, adding more visual diversity and skin tone to these Rider-Waite-Smith cards. The other Rider-Waite-Smith deck I used to have was the Radiant Wise Spirit, and I really liked that one for a while, but then it felt a little bit, too bold for me. I don't know. I'm just liking these kind of colors as well. I kind of told Joe that I was open to giving this up. Although now that I'm reading for other people and I want to hold like tarot workshops or activities in the future, I think it'd be better to just keep this around. I think people can just benefit from learning from this deck, even though I don't personally use it a lot. I think this deck is really beautiful to look at. Honestly, me looking at it now, I just find it really beautiful. Okay, last deck I'll talk about here, and then I'm talking about some books. We got the Next World Tarot by Christy C. Rode. I first learned about the Next World Tarot from Katie Flowers on YouTube. Even though she's more active on her new channel now, I will always appreciate her tarot channel. Oh, the Kismet. Did not plan that. There was a video that Katie Flowers made, a tarot and practice video. It was a series where she worked with a deck for a month or a period of time. She shared different readings and different pulls from the deck, different topics that she read about, and shared her interpretations of each card. And now, many years later, I'm finally ready to try the deck for myself. So I bought this deck at the end of December, secondhand. There's a bit of water damage on a couple of these cards, but I don't mind it. Sometimes if I am bothered by the shuffling, I'll actually just roll a die and just pull like cards from the top. Like I'll roll a d20, for example, and it says like 16. So I take the 16th card from the top, and then I roll it again and it says like 12. I take the 12th card from the top. So it's a fun extra way of shuffling. It's difficult to shuffle this deck with how big these cards are. Like look at the standard tarot card size versus this card. Whew, that is huge. I knew I wanted this deck first though, instead of the pocket edition, because I wanted to see the cards in their full glory. I recently listened to Tarot Magpie mention a deck that they had rehomed, the Shadowscapes Tarot, and I remember people in the comments were also saying like the details in the Shadowscapes Tarot cards were so much. The Shadowscapes Tarot is like this small and there's so much detail, and it was like so much. So yeah, that's why I didn't want to get the pocket edition of the Next World Tarot yet. I did have the Shadowscapes Tarot briefly and rehomed it pretty soon because I was like, I cannot look at this. There's too much going on. But now with this is big. Can look at all these big cards, can really look at all the different detail here. I did daily card pulls for a little bit when I first got this deck in December, January. It was fun to just write the name of the card in big letters and big cursive in my journal because writing with nice pens is fun. We also have keywords and astrological placements here too. I know Joe's not going to care about that because I know Joe does not care about astrology. That's okay. And then actually, the Next World Tarot has this big freaking book as well. If you thought these cards were big, look at this book. My camera cannot zoom out any further, but here is a comparison. Tarot for Change, and then here's the Next World Tarot. This is the best I can do for now. It's huge, man. It's huge. Someone in a Facebook tarot group was just selling this. Now, if I missed the Next World Tarot deck, I can just look at this book instead. So to briefly look at the guidebook, we have sections for each card here. Actually, though, the big book seems to have those same sections rewritten. They're not really changed up or added on in any way. So it actually feels like the same stuff from the guidebook are also in this book. I guess the big difference is that you have like big page illustrations like this. And also this is in Spanish as well. So the book is bilingual there. Five of Wands, for example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So it's pretty much the same thing there. That is a bit of a bummer. I would have liked to see more about maybe the inspiration behind this card, other write-ups, but related to this topic of post-apocalyptic, rebuilding a better society, being here for each other more, things like that, there are a few books out that do tackle those topics, which is really cool to see. I'll list a few titles out loud to share in case you're interested in like activism or like expanding on, subverting your previous tarot knowledge. The book Queering the Tarot, there is Tarot for the Hard Work, Radical Tarot, 78 Acts of Liberation, and Joe just made a book review video about that book, 70 Acts of Liberation. I'll link that video in the description. Last few things here, some books. Joe requested the Tarot for Change book. I had listened to this book on audiobook years ago and liked it so much that I wanted a physical copy for myself, although I haven't referenced the physical copy that much for myself afterward. I think before this book, I had read other books about tarot meanings, like Kitchen Table Tarot, for example, and this book felt really refreshing because it explained like some of these typical meanings for the cards, but then it also subverted them in a way. The topic of this book is about change, not just in ourselves, but in society as well. It ties in some of these cards to therapy concept as well, which I personally love. Psychology and therapy is like a very special interest of mine. It has been a really long time since I've read this book, so it's like new to me again at this point. Yeah, you know, it's just in my personal library for whenever I want to refer to it, whenever that happens, you know. A couple other like things I'm just lending to Joe. She doesn't know this, but she will now after she receives this package. So Joe just did a video about tarot for kids. Joe has a young kid and a new one on the way. Congrats, Joe. I wanted to just send her a couple of these books in case she might enjoy them as well. So this is Mystic's Magical Journey by Lisa Papez. This is a standalone book that is inspired by or in conjunction with the Unicorn's Journey Tarot that Lisa created. So this just details the Fool's journey through Mystic. So I thought Joe might like to take a look at that. And then there is this random book that I bought from an independent bookstore a while ago. I don't remember where, but it's called Self-Care for Everyone by Wong XX. This is just a very cute book with a lot of illustrations about seals and loving yourself. And they're just very cute, very blobby. I wondered if Joe or her kid might like these blobs for a bit. I like to flip through this book once in a while as a pick-me-up. So this is the tarot package, the tarot goodies that I'm sending to Joe for the time being. Joe, I hope you enjoy these. I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I'm looking forward to be re-inspired on how to use these decks after I hear about your enjoyment or critiques of these decks and this book. Also, I cannot wait to see what Joe is sending me. I mean, I know what's in it because I know the decks that I requested, but I kind of forgot at this point in this very moment right now. So when I receive it, it's going to be like an unexpected package. That's all I got for today. See you in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.